Hey guys, it's Danny. Today we're gonna have a Vanda video. We're gonna start outside. I realized that I didn't actually update you on the whole Vanda situation. There has been something changed with the Vandas. So I'm gonna show you a little bit about their situation outside, how they look like. We're gonna take a few highlights and look at them, because again, I don't know if you're up to date with my Vanda collection. It's quite numerous. And we're just gonna talk about the changes and the latest developments, which didn't necessarily happen because I wanted them to, but since they happened, I learned something new. So because outside it tends to get quite noisy, we are going to take a few orchids inside and talk more about them. Okay, so let me give you the backstory really fast, because I believe that if those things wouldn't have happened in my life, I wouldn't have the setup today. So my parents came to visit first time after 3 years around Easter time, and they sat for about 3 weeks here. But if you remember, it was around the time when the problems with my pet bird happened. So my time for orchids just disappeared. Not only did I not film much, but I didn't really have time to care for my orchids, to water them. And the Vandas were the most exposed ones because they were bare-rooted, they were outside. And this came right after I made that video about the sizzle fiber, which, yes, I figured out what it was. I will show you what sizzle fiber looks like. And microfiber. So I was in the process of starting or testing out that setup. Well, all of the problems happened all at once. I didn't have time, and my Vandas started to really suffer. They started to get very dehydrated. Some still have a few signs here and there, but very mild, and I needed to do something. First thing that I started to do, I stopped watering them with osmosis water like I do with all of my orchids. I went directly to tap water, just hosed them down every day. But this wasn't enough, because a heat wave settled in and we had 40 degrees Celsius during daytime or even more. And that's a little strange for this time of the year, but hey, it happened, so the orchids suffered even more. So I had to do something fast. So what did I have at my disposal? I actually had some moss, and I had this bark mix that I told you guys I can find locally from Zoo Med. I had a ton of those and nothing of the rest, pretty much. I had to act in one evening, and being that the baskets already had a liner of sizzle fiber, I decided to just dump in whatever I could. So I put some moss in there, some bark in there, whatever I could to make sure that these orchids have a little bit of water. I actually did the fastest thing that I could do. And I didn't really care much about the bark getting attached to the roots because it's very small grade bark. This thing doesn't really attach all that much to thick roots, and Vandas have thick roots. So as the temporary savior, it was okay. I had an abundance of it, so I just dumped it in. So all of the Vandas have some bark there that retains water. So let me give you a close-up to show you exactly how the setup is. So if you look inside the basket, you can see I have sizzle fiber lining, which looks very much like coconut fiber. I do present this in a video, so I'll link it down below to the video in which I tell you about this. It's a find from the flower shop, but the thing is they don't have a lot of stock of it, so I ran out. It's a great liner, even though it's organic, it really won't decompose all that fast, and it just maintains everything in. So the initial plan was to do this with microfiber, but I don't have enough of this. So I aborted that plan, at least for now. So as much as I had availability of this material, I tried to line this entire basket, of course, on the floor and also a little bit on the wall. It's not everywhere, as you can see. I just had to make do with what I had. And inside we have bark and also some sphagnum moss. Some of these baskets have microfiber. I just didn't sit to remove anything or to do anything. I just put it there just so the roots have some hydration and something to hold in the moisture. And that's about it. I don't even have bark to the top or anything. It's just a little bit of something there. And to my surprise, this actually worked pretty well. The root system is pretty much loving it. All of my orchids actually do really appreciate this setup, and I have roots growing out of everywhere. You can see them on the top, on the bottom. This is just one of the orchids, but everybody's actually producing roots right now. It's the season. And you want to know what the news of the century is? I am using tap water with these orchids. No osmosis water, nothing at all. And I don't have burned root tips or anything of the sorts. And I use tap water twice a day. I actually hose everybody down in the morning and in the nighttime. And this material inside helps retain the water and everything is balanced. This is how much I have to water right now in this climate with my Vanda Orchids, and imagine if I had to do this with my osmosis water. It would not have worked at all, and I would be so non-economical with water. I would just run out of water. So pressured by the circumstance, you know what? I discovered that my tap water at least, is perfectly fine for Vandas. I'm sure it's not gonna be fine for Masdevallias, but for Vandas, oh my goodness, it works so fast, and I avoided it for the past 3 years, can you imagine? So for the past month and a half or even more, this is what these orchids are receiving. Due to lack of time, nothing else. Behold, it's actually working. So let me give you a few details about my tap water. It's not soft, but it's not very hard. It's around 250 parts per million total dissolved solids. It has a very high pH of 8. We'll get to that, which is a bummer because it's very alkaline, and most plants don't really enjoy that. But it doesn't have any added additives. In this region, we don't add fluoride or other things except chlorine to the water, but chlorine isn't that so detrimental for plants. I've never actually had issues with plants and chlorine. If it's within drinkable limits, the plants will be fine as well, and that's about it. That's my water. I know for a fact that many orchids will not appreciate this water, and as I was saying, I believe Miltoniopsis, Masdevallias, all of these orchids with finer roots, with brittle roots, let's say, I don't think they will enjoy it long term. However, Vandas, I thought I would start to get patches and all sorts of things on the roots, but I'm not getting them. I don't see anything new appearing except the older patches, which happened sometime in the past, due to roots just brushing against something and getting damaged. Other than that, there's no, let's say, chemical damage that I see on the root system with using this water. The problem with the water is the pH, and this is where I kind of thought about it afterwards. I thought, oh, well, that works out. I didn't plan it, but it works out. Moss and bark are actually acidic, and we did measurements. I will link the video down below. The moss has a 4.8 pH, so quite acidic, and the bark is 5.5. And being that there are so many tannins and acids in them, whatever water is there will not stay at a pH of 8, it will go down. So in the end, even if the water is not proper from the point of view of pH, it is actually reduced by the medium. If I would have had only microfiber, this wouldn't have worked. But with the bark and everything, it actually works. Now nutrients, this is a whole nother story. Being that now, theoretically, they do have a sort of medium of their own, even though it's not much, even though it's super airy, I wouldn't call this medium, it's just something sprinkled there. Well, I can actually water them how I water the other orchids with my spray pump. So I'll link it down below if you don't know my technique, maybe it will help you out. And being that I have concrete under them, I don't really care if I make a whole lot of water. So from that point of view, oh, it's so much better not to have them in the growth space. I can be so sloppy with water. But I want to try something, and if you guys want me to film it, I will. So there are a few videos on the internet and also a few articles with a DIY sort of satchel with slow release fertilizer, which you can hang from the orchid. You can let it drip over the roots, and every time you hose down the orchid, that satchel will get wet and it will drip some fertilizer into the basket. And I'm kind of fancying that idea because it would be so much more easy for me to fertilize them with every water. So I'll link it down below to the first video that I see has been uploaded on the subject on YouTube, just so you see what I'm talking about. I don't want to do the same model as they're doing. I have a different thing in mind with some materials that I actually have around the house. I'm not gonna go buy some mosquito net just for this, but we'll see. So I'm tempted to do that. Let me know if you are actually interested to film the process to show you my version of these fertilizer satchels, which I find very suited for the setup, suited for things that can get hosed down, not suited for orchids in your home. But I don't think it's limited to Vandas. I think you can actually use something like this for mounts as well, so why not? Let me know if you'd like me to film it. I definitely will. So right now I'm fertilizing them just like I do the other orchids, but I think there's an easier method to this, because to sprinkle a little bit of water to this mass of roots, there's a lot of waste. So I do want to try out the satchel method. And lastly, I think you noticed I do have a few more neighbors in these baskets. These are a new addition. I saw them in the flower shop last week and I thought, oh, air plants. I've never seen them for sale. I should buy some. What should I do with them? Put them in the baskets. So that's what I did. And they look like they're enjoying it. they're not potted, they don't have roots. Being that they're air plants, they do absorb water through their leaves, and I think it looks like a very exotic addition to my already exotic looking Vandas. So yeah, that's why they're there. They're new. We'll see how they do. So with the setup explained now, and with, yeah, just the turn of events that forced me to do something like this, let me just give you some highlights now, right? So this one that you're seeing right now with the beautiful flower spikes starting to arch downwards, this is the wonderful Aeritas huliciana. I purchased it last year, do you remember? It had really nice yellow flowers, but I wish they were orange. Typically, they're more orangey. So it's gonna be really interesting to see how they do this year. And the orchid herself, oh, she's doing just great, just lovely. It's a nice change to see Vandas doing good after the disaster of last year. And to be honest, I did not expect this year to be any better with the Vandas, considering that at some point I was looking at them and saying, this year I'm gonna lose a few, or it's just not gonna look so great. What do I do? What do I do? Oh, what do I do? That was pretty much my mindset at some point a month and a half ago. But there we have it. It kind of worked out in the end. Next up, here's an orchid that I got last year. It's an orange one. Hopefully it's not mislabeled. So this is Ascocenda Orange Mandarin. This is an Orchids Deluxe. No, it's a class in Orchids orchid. So the Ascocenda Orange Mandarin is about to bloom, and fingers crossed she is orange. If you don't know my history or bad luck with orange orchids, check the description down below. I have a video on it. It's not a serious video. It's a light-hearted, kind of jokey video. But yeah, I never seem to get orange orchids. They're mislabeled, or they're just simply not available, or something happens to them. So fingers crossed we're gonna have orange flowers soon. This is a big girl. This is the Vanda Denisoniana variety cream shine torn. The problem with watering in a bucket, if you don't have a big enough bucket or the orchid is just too large, is that all of these upper roots, which Denisonianas are notorious for, they will just stop growing from time to time. And I think you can see a lot of this going on. And this is solely because they don't get enough water. Well, now that I started to water them with the hose practically, I'm seeing a lot of little nubbins starting to grow once again, and I'm hoping I can get better growth on these roots as well. Down below, everything is okay, but I'm not gonna say aerial roots, the upper roots just never grew properly. Hoping that they will now. Look how many little tips are poking through. Now, this orchid, she has some flower spikes. Let me get you in closer. So last year she didn't bloom because of the whole disaster with sunburning my orchids. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check the description down below. It's not a fun video, but maybe it will be helpful. So this year she started to put out some flower spikes. The first one she put out, I think, was this one. And then I brought them outside and we had a cold spell of all things. And the flower spike just dried. And then she tried to produce another one when the weather warmed up a little bit, which I think you can see the remains of right here. And then the whole situation with Bindi happened. I just didn't water my Vandas because I didn't have time. Lo and behold, she aborted yet another flower spike. I thought I would not see any blooms from this orchid this year. Now, ever since I put her on this watering schedule, she's trying to produce flower spikes again. One of them way down here. Now I'm hoping it's not a keiki. Please, no keikis. We don't want any of those. She has enough. She has two basil ones. So we have a spike there, another one here, which is still lower than the previous attempts, and one right here. So 3 flower spikes right now. So a lesson to be learned. This orchid, if it doesn't receive water, she's not gonna like it. If the temperatures are too low, not gonna like it. The orchid is okay, flower spikes are not, so be careful with that and water your Vandas when they're starting to produce flower spikes. But anyway, happy that she did not give up, and I was not expecting flower spikes to be produced below the initial ones. But there you go, it can happen. And the last highlight we're gonna look at today is the Ascocentrum miniatum. This one is supposed to be orange. We'll see about that. So I think if I turn it around, you'll be able to better see. This is an orchid which produces very tiny little flowers and flower spikes. And this is the first time this orchid blooms. It has one spike here, and another one down below here. And not only that, but we have a keiki in the back, which has a little flower spike here too. So that's really, really cute. This is the first time this orchid blooms for me, and the first time it blooms generally. So hoping that the flowers will not be misshaped or anything of the sorts. You know how first time bloomers are, but we'll see. I will keep you up to date. So these were a few of the highlights for today. I think I do have a few more Vandas which are trying to produce some flower spikes. So hopefully this summer will be a great show in comparison to last summer, which was a disaster. I'm glad that I was forced to do the setup and it's actually working out. I'm not sure if I'm gonna keep it per se, because at some point the bark will degrade, even though it's gonna degrade much slower because it simply does not sit wet all the time. I have to water my Vandas now 2 times a day to maintain them happy. In between, this bark goes bone dry, so it's not like it's staying wet all the time. So I don't know, maybe it's gonna last me a few years. If it doesn't, I'll just dump it out. Being that it's tiny, it's not gonna be a hassle to remove from the root system. And really honestly, I just want a break right now. I want no more problems to arise. So I will leave it as it is this year and see how it goes. But yeah, eventually this bark will degrade, will need to be replaced. So hopefully it's not gonna be a hassle then, but we'll see when we get there. That has been the update for the Vandas. Now that things are a little bit more relaxed with Bendy, I am thinking to install an automated system of sprinklers to water them whenever I set it to water them. I need to just focus a little bit on it. We're not yet done with his treatment. He's not yet fully recovered. We're still stressed, I have to say. So I'm not sure when I'm gonna do it. I'm perfectly fine with just hosing down 3-5 minutes every morning and every evening. I can do that now, and the medium helps out, but at some point I can actually make a sprinkler system. For now, that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this. Wouldn't it be fun to have a whole lot of Vanda blooms this year? Hoping. So thank you so much for watching. You know the drill. Like or dislike this video below. Subscribe to my channel for regular orchid videos, tutorials, Q&As, and other fun orchid subjects. And if you wish to support the channel, do consider visiting the merch store down below in the description. You have links. And with that said, I'll see you next time. Bye.